Chapter 1, Edinburgh, June 25, 1841, by Charles Dickens. At a public dinner given in honour of Mr. Dickens and presided over by the late Professor Wilson, the chairman having proposed his health in a long and eloquent speech, Mr. Dickens returned thanks as follows. If I felt your warm and generous welcome less, I should be better able to thank you, if I could have listened as you have listened to the glowing language of your distinguished chairman, and if I could have heard as you heard the thoughts that breathe and words that burn, which he has uttered, it would have gone hard but I should have caught some portion of his enthusiasm, and kindled at his example. But every word which fell from his lips, and every demonstration of sympathy and approbation with which you received his eloquent expressions, renders me unable to respond to his kindness, and leaves me at last all heart and no lips, yearning to respond as I would do to your cordial greeting, possessing, heaven knows, the will, and desiring only to find the way. The way to your good opinion, favour, and support has been to me very pleasing, a path strewn with flowers and cheered with sunshine. I feel as if I stood amongst old friends, whom I had intimately known and highly valued. I feel as if the deaths of the fictitious creatures, in which you have been kind enough to express an interest, had endeared us to each other as real afflictions deepen friendships in actual life. I feel as if they had been real persons, whose fortunes we had pursued together in inseparable connection, and that I had never known them apart from you. It is a difficult thing for a man to speak of himself or of his works, but perhaps on this occasion I may, without impropriety, venture to say a word on the spirit in which mine were conceived. I felt an earnest and humble desire, and shall do till I die, to increase the stock of harmless cheerfulness. I felt that the world was not utterly to be despised, that it was worthy of living in for many reasons. I was anxious to find, as the Professor has said, if I could, in evil things, that soul of goodness which the Creator has put in them. I was anxious to show that virtue may be found in the byways of the world, that it is not incompatible with poverty and even with rags, and to keep steadily through life the motto, expressed in the burning words of your northern poet. The rank is but the guinea stamp, the man's the gowd for that. And in following this track, where could I have better assurance that I was right, or where could I have stronger assurance to cheer me on than in your kindness on this to me memorable night? I am anxious and glad to have an opportunity of saying a word in reference to one incident in which I am happy to know you were interested, and still more happy to know, though it may sound paradoxical, that you were disappointed. I mean the death of the little heroine. When I first conceived the idea of conducting that simple story to its termination, I determined rigidly to adhere to it, and never to forsake the end I had in view. Not untried in the school of affliction, in the death of those we love, I thought what a good thing it would be if in my little work of pleasant amusement I could substitute a garland of fresh flowers for the sculptured horrors which disgrace the tomb. If I have put into my book anything which can fill the young mind with better thoughts of death, or soften the grief of older hearts, if I have written one word which can afford pleasure or consolation to old or young in time of trial, I shall consider it as something achieved, something which I shall be glad to look back upon in after life. Therefore I kept to my purpose, notwithstanding that towards the conclusion of the story, I daily received letters of remonstrance, especially from the ladies. God bless them for their tender mercies. The Professor was quite right when he said that I had not reached to an adequate delineation of their virtues, and I fear that I must go on blotting their characters in endeavouring to reach the ideal in my mind. These letters were, however, combined with others from the sterner sex, and some of them were not altogether free from personal invective. But notwithstanding, I kept to my purpose, and I am happy to know that many of those who at first condemned me are now foremost in their approbation. If I have made a mistake in detaining you with this little incident, I do not regret having done so, for your kindness has given me such a confidence in you that the fault is yours and not mine. I come once more to thank you, and here I am in a difficulty again. The distinction you have conferred upon me is one which I never hoped for, and of which I never dared to dream. That it is one which I shall never forget, and that while I live I shall be proud of its remembrance, you must well know. I believe I shall never hear the name of this capital of Scotland without a thrill of gratitude and pleasure. I shall love while I have life her people, her hills and her houses, and even the very stones of her streets. And if in the future works which may lie before me you should discern, God grant you may, a brighter spirit and a clearer wit, I pray you to refer it back to this night, and point to that as a Scottish passage for evermore. I thank you again and again with the energy of 1,000 thanks in each one, and I drink to you with a heart as full as my glass, and far easier emptied, I do assure you. Later in the evening, in proposing the health of Professor Wilson, Mr. Dickens said, "I have the honour to be entrusted with a toast, the very mention of which will recommend itself to you, I know, as one possessing no ordinary claims to your sympathy and approbation, and the proposing of which is as congenial to my wishes and feelings as its acceptance must be to yours. It is the health of our chairman, and coupled with his name I have to propose the literature of Scotland, a literature which he has done much to render famous through the world, and of which he has been for many years, as I hope and believe he will be for many more, a most brilliant and distinguished ornament. Who can revert to the literature of the land of Scott and of Burns without having directly in his mind, as inseparable from the subject and foremost in the picture, that old man of might, with his lion heart and sceptred crutch, Christopher North? I am glad to remember the time when I believed him to be a real, actual, veritable old gentleman, that might be seen any day hobbling along the high street with the most brilliant eye, but that is no fiction, and the greyest hair in all the world, who wrote not because he cared to write, not because he cared for the wonder and admiration of his fellow-men, but who wrote because he could not help it, because there was always springing up in his mind a clear and sparkling stream of poetry which must have vent, and like the glittering fountain in the fairy tale draw what you might, was ever at the full, and never languished even by a single drop or bubble. I had so figured him in my mind, and when I saw the Professor 2 days ago striding along the Parliament House, I was disposed to take it as a personal offence. I was vexed to see him look so hearty. I drooped to see 20 Christophers in one. I began to think that Scottish life was all light and no shadows, and I began to doubt that beautiful book to which I have turned again and again, always to find new beauties and fresh sources of interest. In proposing the memory of the late Sir David Wilkie, Mr. Dickens said, "Less fortunate than the 2 gentlemen who have preceded me, it is confided to me to mention a name which cannot be pronounced without sorrow, a name in which Scotland had a great triumph, and which England delighted to honour. One of the gifted of the earth has passed away, as it were, yesterday, one who was devoted to his art, and his art was nature. I mean David Wilkie. He was one who made the cottage hearth a graceful thing, of whom it might truly be said that he found books in the running brooks, and who has left in all he 999 some breathing of the air which stirs the heather. But however desirous to enlarge on his genius as an artist, I would rather speak of him now as a friend who has gone from amongst us. There is his deserted studio, the empty easel lying idly by, the unfinished picture with its face turned to the wall, and there is that bereaved sister, who loved him with an affection which death cannot quench. He has left a name in fame clear as the bright sky. He has filled our minds with memories pure as the blue waves which roll over him. Let us hope that she who more than all others mourns his loss, may learn to reflect that he died in the fullness of his time, before age or sickness had dimmed his powers, and that she may yet associate with feelings as calm and pleasant as we do now the memory of Wilkie.